Hello and welcome. Today we have a very special guest with us, Valerian Sequeira. He's also called as Coach Val. Val is a founder of an organization named True Drops Ocean. He has helped hundreds of couples to live a fulfilled life. In the past, he has worked with organizations such as Facebook, HP, Morgan Stanley, and the list goes on. Val, welcome.
Thank you, Paul. It's good to be here.
Great to have you with us today. I've heard from different sources you're doing something called as Enneagram. What is Enneagram and why is it so important?
So, Enneagram is basically 9 personality types. And Enneagram is taught to people to understand each other. And this is taught in organizations, this is taught in different places. So, in the context of marriage, I teach it to my clients to understand their partner. And why is it so important to understand the personality of the other person? So, what happens when we get married is we might choose somebody who is of the same educational background, economic background, caste, religion, horoscope, everything is matched. But with personality, that's how we are wired naturally by nature. We always choose somebody who is different from us. Always. Now, once the romance stage is over, then the problem comes when I see the other person doing things which are different from my way of doing. I say to myself, why is she not doing the way I'm doing? In fact, I have a client right now, married for 22 years. And for the last 22 years, he had been trying to fix his wife because thinking that this is the way to do things. And she is not doing it that particular way. And he had been trying to fix. But in the last 6 weeks, from the time he has started learning Enneagram and started implementing it, for the first time he has realized that he and his wife are totally different with regard to personality. And that realization has brought in acceptance towards his wife. And because he is accepting and loving towards her just the way she is, there's a total shift in her. So that's that way Enneagram helps somebody to understand the other person. And as soon as we understand, our anger, frustration with the other person goes down, because for the first time probably we realize that that person is different from us. And as soon as that happens, there's a shift in our approach. And when there is a shift in our approach, the other person changes. And there's a beautiful relationship that gets built up.
Thank you so much, Val, for letting us know about Enneagram. And I'm definitely going to do a little bit more research about all of this because thanks for increasing that curiosity in me with regards to this. My second question to you is, when do you think a relationship goes wrong?
All right, this is a very important question, very good question, because most people have this in their mind. Like, in other words, generally people say everything was really nice initially, and somewhere things went wrong. And when people are saying things went wrong, they're basically saying that fellow or that filly started changing. Everything was good with me. Now, here is the news that I would like every viewer to absorb it, that your relationship supposed to go wrong. It has to go wrong. And the earlier it goes wrong is better. Because what do we mean by going wrong? It's the process of dying. Okay. Now, if you look at everything in nature, anything you do, it grows to a certain extent and then it dies and then it grows stronger. I'll give you a couple of examples. If you take a rose plant, you cut a branch, you plant it somewhere else. And within the first 2 days, the leaves come out. Now that's sort of a death. But you keep watering that plant and the plant grows beautifully. You have a child. The child has grows these milk teeth. And after about 3 or 4 years, those teeth come out so that the strong teeth come. But in relation, and the same with relationship, the romance of the initial years is like the milk teeth. That has to fall off. And when that falls off, suddenly we realize that we don't have teeth. But that's a good thing. That's a process. But with teeth, people have taught us that as soon as those teeth have gone off, the new teeth will come. We don't start panicking because we realize that. But with relationships, we don't. We think that it is the end, and that is the beginning of the end, because we think it is the end. Because we think that the relationship has gone wrong, we do all the wrong things to fix our relationship. And when we do all those wrong things to fix our relationship, and when I say fixing the relationship, means try to explain it to the other person, try to convince the other person to change, and that only makes the relationship worse. But if we realize and if we start learning relationship science, we will be able to take our relationship which is dead, that's the second process that's supposed to happen, we'll be able to take it to the next level. And that next level is called mature love or deep friendship. And here is the sad news that I want to share with all our viewers, that 7 out of 10 marriages or relationships don't reach the third level. They die in the second level. Not because they are not good people, it's just because we think that there is something wrong. Realizing that there is nothing wrong and realizing that it is a step towards going to something deeper has such an impact on our relationship that we can transform our marriage from just what's happening to something beautiful.
Well, thank you for giving hope to hundreds of couples who are going through a tough time right now.
I just want to add one thing. As you mentioned, that if there is somebody out there who is thinking it is the end of your marriage and who is thinking of finding somebody perfect, and to find that somebody perfect, you want to get out of the relationship, then that could be the biggest mistake you can make. Because when you married this person was perfect, right? You didn't marry an imperfect person. You married somebody really nice. Now, if you get out of this relationship and marry somebody else, of course, it will start with romance stage, but within a year or two, you'll reach the same place. So it's very important that you need to work on yourself so that you can take this relationship to the next level. So over to you, Paul. Yeah.
Are there any skills which are a must in a relationship? Tell us something about that.
Okay. Most people say communication is important, or conflict resolution, conflict management is really important. But and you got to learn these skills. Listening is a very important skill. It's true to a certain extent, but let's look at the whole thing in a different way. When you fell in love with that person, you felt that that person totally understood you. You understood that person totally, and you never went for any communication classes before you fell in love. Or conflict resolution, you did not go for any conflict management classes when you fell in love, but somehow you are able to resolve those conflicts because at that time there was love. Maybe it was driven by the hormones or whatever, but there was love. And basically love means putting the other person and other person's needs before mine. And when I do that, the other person does the same. So the only skill that I believe a person is to have is realization. Realization that when we are stuck, when we are having problems, the problem is not with the other person. The problem is not with me. It is just that's the phase. And basically, I need to work on myself in being a mature lover. It is very easy to be love, caring, and understanding all those things in the romance stage. But what I need to learn is to be loving and caring even when the other person is not. And of course, I need somebody's support, an expert support or a coach's support, because it's a journey. That journey is difficult. So, so there are no skills as such. So there are no skills as such. But the most important thing is to bringing back that love that was there, and everything that you had at the initial phase of your relationship will come back.
So basically, it's all about self-awareness. Am I getting that right? In some way?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Self-awareness. Yeah, yeah.
Correct. So I'm sure there are many couples who are struggling right now. Um, is it okay to seek help? And from whom should the couple seek help from?
Okay, I'll start with who should you not seek help from.
That's a nice one. Okay,
You shouldn't
continue.
seek, yeah. So you shouldn't seek help from your friends, relatives, or your family members. Now you can talk to them, it lightens your heart when things are not going right, but don't take advice from them. And here is why. When you see, our brain is wired to hide our faults, it's wired that way. So when we have a fight, when we have an argument, a brain can only see the other person's fault, not mine. So when I'm telling what's happening in my marriage to my friend or a relative or my parents, how am I going to talk to them? I'm going to tell them that poor me, the victim, and that man, my husband, is a victimizer. And they are going to look at you as, oh, so sad. And they will be trying to rescue you from that victimizer by saying, why are you stuck in this marriage? Why can't you move on? You'll find somebody better. And that could be the biggest mistake you can make. I'll just give you to share these stats with the viewers is that if you're thinking about you'll find somebody better, here is a shocker for you. In the US, and it's a similar situation in India, it's just that we don't have the data. In the US, the divorce rate for the first marriage is 50%. Guess what is the divorce rate for the second marriage? Is it higher or lower? It should be lower, right? Because the first marriage, you made a mistake, you realized your mistake, now you're supposed to understand you marry somebody better from your experience. But unfortunately, the divorce rate for the second marriage is 67%. That is 17% more than the first marriage. The divorce rate for the third marriage is 74%. Now you understand what's happening here. All these people, when things went wrong, they went to their friends, relatives, parents, and these friends, relatives, and parents told them, why are you suffering in this marriage? Why don't you get out? And they got out of that marriage looking for somebody perfect. When they found that perfect person, they got married. They went into the power struggle stage, the second stage where the love disappears. And the same thing, the story repeated. So you shouldn't talk to these people with the intention of getting advice. The second kind of people might not be able to help you, not because they don't want to, but in the context of, let's put it this way. Now, when somebody goes to a counselor, okay, and for couple counseling, what happens in our brain is this. Of all the, I've worked with all sorts of people, I've coached all sorts of people, and I've realized that with relationships, only with relationship, our brain cannot think clearly. With all the other ones, I've noticed that the person is, oh, there is a challenge with the job, money, health, and anxiety, and all these things, but the person is able to find answers. But with the relationship is not. And the reason is, when we get into a relationship problem, a brain goes into something called a primal panic. Primal panic, the example of this is, imagine that you're a 5-year-old child and you have gone to a Kumbh Mela. There are thousands and millions of people there. And in the midst of those people, you're lost. Imagine the panic you would feel there. And that's the exact kind of panic a person in relationship stress feels. So when they go to a counselor, when they sit there, what's going to happen? They will not use their brain while talking to the counselor because they are in panic. And in panic, people do two things. One, they run away or they attack. So if you have gone to a counselor, you would have noticed this. One of you would shout and scream and tell the counselor how the other person is wrong and how the other person needs to fix himself or herself. And the other person would sit like this. Just sit like this. And because of this, you cannot change things. Because in marriage, love doesn't return when problems are solved. It's just the opposite of that. The problems are solved when love returns. So, who should you go to? That brings us to the last question. You should go to somebody who can help you long term, over a period of 3 months or 6 months, and he works with you. Because what has happened is you have, over the years, you have created a habit of interaction between you. It's a habit. Okay. And it's a habit created, and now that habit has to be broken. Now, many a times people have this question: should both go for help? Can I fix my marriage alone? The answer is yes, because relationships work on the third principle of Newton, that is, every action has equal and opposite reaction. So if you learn to change your action consistently, the reaction of your spouse will change automatically. So look for somebody who can help you to make you a better person in your relationship. And once you become a better person, the other person automatically becomes a better person.
How do you help people then? Tell us in brief.
All right. Yes. Yeah. How do I help people? When I tell somebody, I say this: you want an awesome marriage? I need to work with you for 3 to 6 months every week. There are certain things you got to learn about relationship science. You got to learn Enneagram. You got to learn whole other things. And then you got to practice. Because things, if your marriage has been horrible for the last 4 to 5 years, things will not change by you attending one session or 2 sessions. You have to break that pattern. So I generally work with somebody over a period of 3 to 6 months, and it's all online. And I always work with one partner. I believe that both of you, those of you who are watching and seeking help, both of you need to change. But all change begins with one person, not with two people. If you look at the change in the world, all the changes that have been brought up, it could be revolutions, it could be independence, freedom struggles, all the changes which are brought up, they all started by one person. So if you want a transformation in your marriage, start with yourself.
That's a nice way to put it. Start with yourself. And my last question to you will be, how can couples use this time of lockdown to enrich their relationship?
Use, I would say, I wouldn't put it as lockdown, but use your life to enrich your relationship. Now,
Nice.
let's start with why relationships are really important during lockdown. Let's talk about that first. Okay. Why relationships are extremely important during lockdown. A brain, when we are going through stress, you could be losing jobs at this moment. Um, you could be being alone, you can't meet people. At these times, relationships are extremely important, because when you have an awesome relationship, your brain produces something called oxytocin. Oxytocin is a cuddle hormone, and oxytocin is the best antidote for depression. So let's start with the first thing. Make sure that your relationships are awesome, because relationships keep us going no matter what comes our way. Because deep down, we know that there is somebody there who is on our side. And if somebody is there to support us on our journey, we can face any struggle. Now, coming back to the question, how can I make my relationship awesome? I'll put it that way rather than just a lockdown.
Okay.
The way you can make your relationship awesome is, the first thing, sit down and make a list of the patterns that are there in your relationship. And I'll give you, is it okay if I share a short pattern that can really help people?
Sure, go on.
Yeah. Now, the biggest problem in relationships is not the other person, it's the way we interact with each other. So, what I would, as a viewer, I want you to sit down and ask yourself what kind of dance or a negative pattern you are into. And there are three types of negative patterns of interaction that exist in relationships. The first one is called find the bad guy. In find the bad guy, the way we talk to each other is basically, whenever there is something goes wrong, one person says it's your fault, and the other person says, no, it's not my fault, it's your fault. So the whole conversation, whether it is about the cup that is left in the sink or the house that is not clean, any matter, it's about the children. That's the way we talk to each other. That is the first type of interaction, negative pattern of interaction. The second type of negative pattern of interaction is demand withdraw. Here, the way we talk to each other is one partner is criticizing all the time and the other partner is keeping quiet. So that's called demand withdraw. That's the second one. The third one is called withdraw withdraw, where both of us are not interacting with each other at all, because we are saying in our mind that if I interact, we are going to have one more fight. Let's not have it. So during this time, I invite you to sit down and ask yourself what kind of a negative pattern of interaction you're having. And just to give you an insight into it, most couples start with one of the first two kind of negative pattern of interaction. Either you start with find the bad guy or demand withdraw, and or a combination of these. And if you don't do anything, if you are having these kind of interactions, just say, thank God we are fighting. Just say to yourself, thank God we are fighting, because it is more dangerous when you stop fighting. And because you're fighting, it doesn't mean that you should continue fighting, but there's much more hope and there are things you can change very quickly because you're fighting. But once you go into silence, now there is a gap which is built. So I invite you to sit down and think about these patterns and ask yourself a question about it. And then in the next conversation when you have with your partner, make sure you don't get into these patterns. Make sure that when you're talking, make sure that is a connecting conversation. Will changes happen overnight? No. So you got to be consistent.
So I'll end with that. Will changes happen overnight? No. So let's continue working on ourselves. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, and I'm sure it will help a lot of our viewers to enrich their relationship. I'm also going to put down Val's contact details in the description box in case somebody wants to contact him. Val, thank you very, very much.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Thank you very, very much for this wonderful opportunity. And let's keep our love story alive.
Yes, that's a nice way to say it. Let's keep our love story alive. Thank you.